I am Dr. Lucretia Cook, but you can call me Dr. LaLa. Welcome back to another episode of the Revolve Podcast, where grief and loss are a journey, not a final destination. And so today is a very special day for me. We're talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart. October is Miscarriage, Infant, and Child Loss Awareness Month. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And so I'm going to share my own journey to motherhood. Um, I ain't going to hold you. It was rough, right? I had two second trimester miscarriages. I delivered a son at 25 weeks and 4 days, and he passed away. And even my rainbow baby was a preemie. So my journey to motherhood was not an easy one. But God is yet faithful and good, right? Because even now, I have a miracle. I have a walking, talking miracle, right? She is the personification of God's grace and goodness in my life. She is my daily reminder that God is the God of possible. Even when man tries to tell us that it's not probable, that it can't be done, I have a living, breathing reminder that God is still the God of miracles, right? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about um, child loss awareness. Like I said, I'm already getting emotional about it because that was a rough time. It really was. And as a little girl, I always knew I wanted to be a wife and mom. Like the plan was to go to college, launch a career, meet my husband, and have some babies. That was the plan. But my plan didn't quite work out like I thought, right? And for me, I've known since I was a very young girl that there were going to be challenges because I had a hormonal issue that we found out about when I was 12. And I distinctly remember the doctor telling my mom that because of my hormonal issues that it would be difficult for me to get pregnant, and then even if I did, it would be a challenge to carry it to term. I distinctly remember her telling my mom that and not fully grasping what she meant at the time. Because, of course, at 12, I'm not really thinking about having babies. But as I got older and started to really think about marriage and having babies, because again, I always knew I wanted to be a wife and a mom. And so when I started that journey, I remembered what the doctor told my mom back when I was a little one. And unfortunately, part of what she said was true, right? Because she did say that I would have some challenges getting pregnant, which was true. And she also said that I would have difficulty carrying one to term. That was also true. But God is still working miracles because that's the part that I praise God for because the Carys Eliana Faith Williamson is walking, talking, breathing. And again, she is a daily reminder that God is yet working miracles, right? And so with my first pregnancy, it was rough. I debilitating nausea and vomiting, right? I lived with a garbage can and there was daily bleeding. So every day I'm vomiting, I'm having these other issues. And so I'll be honest, I lived in fear every day. And so I miscarried my first pregnancy at 14 weeks. And I was devastated, you know? And so then with Karis, also challenges, um, lots of nausea and vomiting. So much so that I wasn't gaining weight. My doctor actually thought I was dieting or something because I just wasn't gaining weight, and it wasn't that I wasn't eating or that I was dieting. It was that I stayed so sick, right? And yet again, problems with bleeding. Like it was something all the time. And I delivered her early at about 35 weeks. She spent about a week and a half in the hospital. And she did have a few little challenges there as a newborn, but for the most part, she's been healthy throughout her entire life. God is faithful. And so she is my rainbow baby. And she is my constant reminder that God is not just the God of Abraham and Sarah, He's my God. And He is yet working miracles. And I am reminded every day when life gets hard, when I get discouraged, I can look at her and be reminded that God, even if He doesn't, He can. Right? Even if He doesn't, He can. And I know that because He did. Right? And so with my third pregnancy with Francesca, I had her at about 22 weeks. Again, nausea, vomiting, bleeding throughout the entire pregnancy. Um, was on bed rest the majority of that pregnancy. Um, yeah. And one night I started having pain. And even before that, um, we realized that the previous ultrasound, I'd had an ultrasound like maybe a week before, we realized that her amniotic fluid wasn't where it was supposed to be. But, I was on bed rest and I'm doing all the things. My parents are helping with Karis. And so I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be to take care of myself. And there was this one night where um, I just started having pain. And I had pain for most of the night. And I had called the doctor and all of those things. And we weren't really at a place where we felt like I needed to go to the emergency room as of yet, but the pain started to get progressively worse throughout the day. And so we went to the emergency room, and I actually wound up delivering her in the restroom of the ER. And it was very traumatizing because I couldn't figure out how to get out of the bathroom. And I've delivered her. She's here, and I'm screaming and I'm crying. I can't get out of the bathroom. Um, they wound up calling housekeeping or something, and that's how I wound up getting out of the bathroom. But I had delivered her in the bathroom by myself. And we finished the delivery in the emergency room, and then on the way to a room, I wound up hemorrhaging and had to have emergency surgery for the hemorrhaging. Um, yeah, that was rough. Just thinking back on it, and um, even now, all these years later, and I talk about it sometimes, but just all of these years later, it comes back, and I can still see the ER, the bathroom, myself in the room in the ER when we realized that I was hemorrhaging on the elevator on my way to the room, the chaos and them getting me to the OR. Like, I can still vividly see all of those things. And then my Judah. And so we had named him even before, just because he was a surprise. Actually, when I called the doctor's office and I told them I thought I was pregnant, uh, Misty called me back, who is the nurse. She called me back and she was like, we got this strange message, and I just wanted to make sure it's you because they said something about maybe being pregnant. And I was like, yeah, it was me. Um, we were all shocked and appalled because it just kind of happened. We hadn't had help, and we'd had help with the others. And so we wound up pregnant with Judah. And again, complication after complication. I was high risk with all four of them, right? And so complication after complication. And but we had made it to what we thought was a safe place. I had made it past 24 weeks, and the day I went into labor with him, I was supposed to have been at the specialty OB's office. I was seeing my regular OB and a high risk OB. I was supposed to have been at his office that day because I was being released. I had made it to the safe space. So we thought the pregnancy, everything was going as well as it could, right? Considering I'm high risk and I have all these complications, but things were going okay. And so we were comfortable with me being released. And so the day I went into labor with him, I was supposed to have been released from the high risk OB. And I wound up going into labor. And I can still remember calling the doctor's office, and I told them, I said, I don't know what's wrong, but something is wrong. It was just a sense of foreboding. Like, I was just like, I don't know, but something's wrong. I'm worried. And I remember talking to my mom on the phone, and I was crying, and I said, I just don't want him to suffer. I distinctly remember telling her that. Um, and again, I know the God of miracles, right? I have a nephew who was born, he was a 24 weeker, and he just got a college scholarship to play football, right? So I know the God of miracles. I had watched him do it. I had watched a premature baby grow and develop and defy every odds. So I knew what was possible, right? But I distinctly remember saying, God, don't let him suffer. And so they bring me in, and I'm already dilating. And so time progresses, and it's decided we're doing all the things, and he was determined to come. We could not stop my labor. And so I wind up having to have an emergency C-section. And during the C-section, there was this moment when I told the doctor, I said, Doc, something's wrong. And she said, what is it? I said, I don't know, but something's wrong. And all of these alarms start going off. And I am very aware that I'm crashing. Like, I hear the things that are going on. There are all these alarms going off. There are people screaming and yelling. And I hear them rushing my ex-husband out the door. I hear him. I hear them getting him out of the room. And I realize I'm crashing. And I distinctly remember being really calm in this moment. I wasn't afraid, like at all. I wasn't afraid. And I was very aware that I was crashing. And I prayed right then and I said, God, anything that's not like you, please forgive me. Please, please forgive me and receive me. That was my last thought. And it was like I was just bathed in this bright light. I was completely calm. I wasn't afraid. I was actually at peace. I really was. And then the next thing I remember, my next conscious thought, is hearing someone say, she's waking up. And my first thought when I woke up was, where's my son? The first thing I asked was, where is he? And of course, they told me that he didn't survive. And I remember being brokenhearted. My heart was so broken. And then I remembered his promises, right? I began to think on his goodness and how I had asked him not to let him suffer. And so that was one of the things that gave me peace in this season, was because I remember asking him, I said, Lord, please don't let him suffer. And so my thought was, you asked that he not suffer. And so God honored that. I'm not saying it was easy, but he honored that because I didn't want him to suffer. And although miracles happen, Preemie survived, there wasn't a guarantee he wasn't going to suffer. And so that was something that gave me comfort, was he wasn't suffering, right? And it was rough. I went home with my parents. My mom took care of me. Those first several days, I couldn't even hold my head up. I was so bruised and battered physically. I had bruises. But emotionally, spiritually, and my soul was just exhausted. There were so many feelings that I had failed, right? Because one of the things we're created to do is have babies. and feeling like I can't even do that right. Right. And so for weeks, my mom took care of me, and she and I took care of Karis. I was holding on by a thread, and I kept reminding myself that I could hide in his shadow. And that weeping would endure for a night, but morning was coming. I didn't know when morning was coming, but I believed that morning was coming. I did. And morning, the sun started to come up. On this one particular day, one of the church mothers stopped by to see me. And she told me, she said, "Baby, the Holy Ghost told me to come see about you. You were on my mind when I woke up this morning. And the Holy Ghost told me to come see about you, and I'm here." Oh man, I just collapsed in her arms. I was so surprised to see her. I just collapsed in her arms, and we talked, and she shared with me how she had lost a baby years before. Now, this church mother was in her 70s. So you can imagine how long it had been. And she shared that journey with me. And she also shared with me about the loss of her son that she had as an adult. He was an adult when he passed away. But she shared her testimony with me, and her story of miscarriage was touching it because she told me she had never shared that with anybody. Nobody knew other than her husband about this miscarriage. But she told me, she said, "Baby, it's okay to be angry. Because God knows and He cares and He loves you. And so it's okay for you to feel the way you feel." But God is still faithful. And I'm not saying it'll be easy, but you will live through this. You're going to be okay. And that was the first ray of sunshine. Because her coming to see me was a much needed reminder that God had not forgotten about me. And that He saw me. And that He felt my pain and He recognized it. And He loved me so much that He sent someone to remind me that He loves me and that eventually I would be okay. So I went back to my word and to my rainbow baby. They were my lifeline back to hope. Right? And so, what I want to share with you, if this is your testimony, if this is your experience, be gentle with yourself. Grief doesn't have a timeline. Whether you lost your baby at 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, or 60 years, know that your baby was loved and that your story, it matters. Grief doesn't have a timeline. There is no calendar. The truth is, this ache might be with you the rest of your days, and that's okay. Because again, I can't promise you that it's going to go away. I can't promise you that it won't hurt. All I can promise you is that with God, you will get better at bearing it, right? You will learn to bear it. And so I encourage you to breathe deeply. Take life one breath, one moment at a time. And please know that you are not alone. You're not. 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in miscarriage. 1 in 4. So you are not alone on this journey, right? And there are things you can do to honor the baby who's no longer here in your arms. As a matter of fact, on October 15th every year, Light Up the Night is a globally recognized event. At 7 p.m., we light candles in memories of our baby. And it happens across the globe. And I have done it every year since my first pregnancy. On October 15th at 7 p.m. around the world, candles are lit in honor of the babies and the children who are no longer here for us to hold in our arms. And that's something that you can do in memory of your baby, because they were here and they are loved. And just because they're not here in your arms doesn't mean that you can't continue to honor them and to hold them in your heart and to recognize them, right? And so I invite you to join me this year to light a candle for your baby. And if you do, please tag me, because I want to honor them with you, right? And so if you stayed here till the end of this journey with me, I want to thank you for holding space with me today. Because I know it was a lot, but I'm sharing because I want you to know you're not by yourself, right? I'm honored that you shared time and space with me today. And I want you to remember that you are loved and to show yourself grace, because these are easy shoes to fill, but you can do it. With God, all things are possible. You can do it. And so until next time, keep choosing healing. Keep choosing joy. I love y'all.